a period of perpetually sitting on a bench with pen in hand and ink on lips and fingers, a period of being eternally confronted with the copybook maxim, "Never tell a lie, but obey your superiors, and cherish virtue in your heart." An everlasting scraping and shuffling of slippers up and down the room, a period of continually hearing a well-known, strident voice exclaim, "So you have been playing the fool again," at times when the child, weary of the mortal monotony of his task, had added a superfluous embellishment to his copy, a period of experiencing the ever familiar but ever unpleasant sensation which ensued upon those words as the boy's ear was painfully twisted between two long fingers bent backwards at the tips. Such is the miserable picture of that youth of which, in later life, Chichikov preserved but the faintest of memories. But in this world everything is liable to swift and sudden change, and one day in early spring, when the rivers had melted, the father set forth with his little son in a telieshka, or four-wheeled open carriage, drawn by a sorrel steed of the kind known to horsey folk as a soroka, and having as coachman the diminutive hunchback who, father of the only serf family belonging to the elder Chichikov, served as general factotum in the Chichikov establishment. For a day and a half the soroka conveyed them on their way, during which time they spent the night at a roadside inn, crossed the river, dined off cold pie and roast mutton, and eventually arrived at the county town. To the lad the streets presented a spectacle of unwonted brilliancy, and he gaped with amazement. Turning into a side alley wherein the mire necessitated both the most strenuous exertions on the soroka's part and the most vigorous castigation on the part of the driver and the barin, the conveyance eventually reached the gates of a courtyard which, combined with a small fruit garden containing various bushes, a couple of apple trees in blossom, and a mean dirty little shed, constituted the premises attached to an antiquated-looking villa. Here there lived a relative of the Chichikovs, a wizened old lady who went to market in person and dried her stockings at the samovar. On seeing the boy, she patted his cheek and expressed satisfaction at his physique, whereupon the fact became disclosed that here he was to abide for a while for the purpose of attending a local school. After a night's rest his father prepared to betake himself homeward again. But no tears marked the parting between him and his son. He merely gave the lad a copper or two, and, a far more important thing, the following injunctions: "See here, my boy, do your lessons well, do not idle or play the fool, and above all things see that you please your teachers. So long as you observe these rules you will make progress, and surpass your fellows, even if God shall have denied you brains, and you should fail in your studies. Also do not consort overmuch with your comrades, for they will do you no good. But should you do so, then make friends with the richer of them, since one day they may be useful to you. Also never entertain or treat anyone, but see that everyone entertains and treats you. Lastly, and above all else, keep and save your every kopeck. To save money is the most important thing in life. Always a friend or a comrade may fail you, and be the first to desert you in a time of adversity, but never will a kopeck fail you, whatever may be your plight. Nothing in the world cannot be done, cannot be attained, without the aid of money." These injunctions given, the father embraced his son, and set forth on his return, and though the son never again beheld his parent, the latter's words and precepts sank deep into the little Chichikov's soul. The next day young Pavlushka made his first attendance at school. But no special aptitude in any branch of learning did he display. Rather, his distinguishing characteristics were diligence and neatness. On the other hand, he developed great intelligence as regards the practical aspect of life. In a trice he divined and comprehended how things ought to be worked, and, from that time forth, bore himself towards his schoolfellows in such a way that, though they frequently gave him presents, he not only never returned the compliment, but even, on occasions, pocketed the gifts for the mere purpose of selling them again. Also, boy though he was, he acquired the art of self-denial. Of the trifle which his father had given him on parting, he spent not a kopeck, but, the same year, actually added to his little store by fashioning a bullfinch of wax, painting it, and selling the same at a handsome profit. Next, as time went on, he engaged in other speculations. In particular, the time scheme of buying up eatables, taking his seat in class beside boys who had plenty of pocket money, and as soon as such opulent individuals showed signs of failing attention, and, therefore, of growing appetite, tendering them from beneath a desk a roll of pudding or a piece of gingerbread, and charging according to degree of appetite and size of portion. He also spent a couple of months in training a mouse, which he kept confined in a little wooden cage in his bedroom. At length, when the training had reached the point that, at the several words of command, the mouse would stand upon its hind legs, lie down, and get up again, he sold the creature for a respectable sum. Thus, in time, his gains attained the amount of 5 roubles; whereupon he made himself a purse, and then started to fill a second receptacle of the kind. Still more studied was his attitude towards the authorities. No one could sit more quietly in his place on the bench than he. In the same connection it may be remarked that his teacher was a man who, above all things, loved peace and good behaviour, and simply could not abide clever witty boys, since he suspected them of laughing at him. Consequently, any lad who had once attracted the master's attention with a manifestation of intelligence needed but to shuffle in his place, or unintentionally to twitch an eyebrow, for the said master at once to burst into a rage, to turn the supposed offender out of the room, and to visit him with unmerciful punishment. "Ah, my fine fellow," he would say, "I'll cure you of your impudence and want of respect. I know you through and through far better than you know yourself, and will take good care that you have to go down upon your knees and curb your appetite." Whereupon the wretched lad would, for no cause of which he was aware, be forced to wear out his breeches on the floor, and go hungry for days. "Talents and gifts," the schoolmaster would declare, "are so much rubbish. I respect only good behaviour, and shall award full marks to those who conduct themselves properly, even if they fail to learn a single letter of their alphabet; whereas to those in whom I may perceive a tendency to jocularity I shall award nothing, even though they should outdo Solon himself." For the same reason he had no great love of the author Krylov, in that the latter says in one of his fables, "In my opinion, the more one sings, the better one works." And often the pedagogue would relate how, in a former school of his, the silence had been such that a fly could be heard buzzing on the wing, and for the space of a whole year not a single pupil sneezed or coughed in class, and so complete was the absence of all sound that no one could have told that there was a soul in the place. Of this mentor young Chichikov speedily appraised the mentality, wherefore he fashioned his behaviour to correspond with it. Not an eyelid, not an eyebrow would he stir during school hours, howsoever many pinches he might receive from behind; and only when the bell rang would he run to anticipate his fellows in handing the master the 3-cornered cap which that dignitary customarily sported, and then to be the first to leave the classroom, and contrive to meet the master not less than 2 or 3 times as the latter walked homeward, in order that, on each occasion, he might doff his cap. And the scheme proved entirely successful. Throughout the period of his attendance at school he was held in high favour, and, on leaving the establishment, received full marks for every subject, as well as a diploma and a book inscribed, in gilt letters, "For exemplary diligence and the perfection of good conduct." By this time he had grown into a fairly good-looking youth of the age when the chin first calls for a razor, and at about the same period his father died, leaving behind him as his estate 4 waistcoats completely worn out, 2 ancient frock-coats, and a small sum of money. Apparently he had been skilled only in recommending the saving of kopecks, not in actually practising the art. Upon that Chichikov sold the old house and its little parcel of land for 1,000 roubles, and removed, with his one serf and the serf's family, to the capital, where he set about organizing a new establishment and entering the civil service. Simultaneously with his doing so, his old schoolmaster lost, through stupidity or otherwise, the establishment over which he had hitherto presided, and in which he had set so much store by silence and good behaviour. Grief drove him to drink, and when nothing was left even for that purpose, he retired, ill, helpless, and starving, into a broken-down, cheerless hovel. But certain of his former pupils, the same clever, witty lads whom he had once been wont to accuse of impertinence and evil conduct generally, heard of his pitiable plight, and collected for him what money they could, even to the point of selling their own necessaries. Only Chichikov, when appealed to, pleaded inability, and compromised with the contribution of a single piatak. silver 5 kopeck piece.] which is old school